Here is an example of Gregorian chant and its characteristic quadratic notation. The word quadratic here means that every symbol has four sides, or is square. Nothing here is rounded like modern musical notation. This is simply the result of the quill pen and its flat-edged tip used by medieval scribes. The symbols are called neumes, a term derived from the Greek word pneuma, meaning breath. Think of the words pneumatic or pneumonia that refer to the air or the lungs. This notation directs the breath, the voice, the vital spirit, or the soul. Even for those who have experience reading music, this notational style can seem unusual, but as we'll see, it's a rather simple system and it's quite practical. Let's take a close-up look at the top system and point out some of the symbols that might be unfamiliar to even the experienced reader, and then we'll decode their meanings. The first thing we'll note is that chant notation uses a 4-line staff instead of the usual 5. Most chants only range about an octave, or 8 notes, so this slightly reduced staff both meets the needs of the notation while saving some space in the manuscripts, which were incredibly expensive to produce. Next, we'll highlight the clef, the term derived from the Latin clavis, meaning key. Here you'll notice that the clef is the letter C, denoting that the second line from the top is C, and that any neume that occupies that line is the same. And here there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 instances of C in this example. And from this designation, we can locate all of the other pitches that fall on or in between the lines of the staff. You can see that this simple 4-line graph provides a wealth of information in a space-saving and efficient way. The dot you see at the extreme right indicates that the neume directly to its left should be held out a bit longer than the others. You will often see these dots at the ends of words or phrases in the text. Next, the vertical line suggests a slight pause or a breath. Generally speaking, the longer the line, the longer the pause, although these are treated as suggestions and not prescriptions. The asterisk indicates that everything that occurs before it should be sung by a soloist, and that the full choir joins the chant after this. You'll notice that the neumes on either side of the asterisks are the same pitch. The soloist introduces the chant, but also provides the starting pitch for the rest of the choir. Let's have a look at some of the medieval neumes and shapes that characterize this type of notation. Highlighted in red are just a few neumes that require a bit of explanation. Each of these neumes contains more than one pitch, and you'll notice that they are all connected or, to use the proper term, legated. The first of these, highlighted here, contains 2 pitches. If this were modern notation, we would assume that the 2 pitches sound together at the same time, like so. But a fundamental rule in Gregorian chant is that it is monophonic, meaning that there is never an instance of what we would call harmony, or more than one pitch sounding at the same time. Instead, these legated neumes are always read from the bottom to the top, like this. The next highlighted neume is read the same way. The next highlighted neume, while legated, is not stacked. Therefore, it is read from left to right, like this. Finally, we have a 3-note legated neume. This is read first from left to right, and then from the bottom to the top. It should sound like this. Look toward the right side of the screen and you'll see 2 dots. These are simply 1 dot attached to each of the last 2 neumes, indicating that they are to be slightly drawn out, and the vertical line, which functions like the one already highlighted, except the size of this line indicates that it might be a far longer pause than the earlier one. And finally, you'll notice a neume that looks as though it's only half drawn on the page, and that's because it is. This is called a custos, the Latin word for guard. It's not meant to be sung as such, but instead indicates what the next note will be on the next line of music. The practical use is that you can start to sing the pitch while your eyes find the next line of musical notation. Almost everything you'll need to know to follow Gregorian chant notation can be found in the first system we've just investigated. But there's one other thing we'll need to explain that can be found on the third system, shown here. This highlighted symbol is the letter B, and it sits in the space denoted B by the clef. So why the seeming redundancy? That's because there are two types of Bs in medieval music, the so-called hard B, or what we now call B natural, and this, the soft B, indicated by its sloping downturned body of the letter. The symbol is not to be sung, but it indicates that all the Bs that occur after it will be softened, or as we now say, flatted. This primordial flat sign remains in effect until the end of the word of text. You now have all of the information you'll need to follow along with the chant notation. In the next brief video lesson, we'll walk through the first portion of this chant neum by neum, so that you can get an idea of what it's like to use this notation in something like a performance.